Hello, everyone, and welcome to our new session of ASAC speaker sessions. Today's webinar is an exciting webinar for all of us at ASAC. This is the first time that we also publicly announced the registration. To introduce myself, my name is Luay Malahmi. I'm the General Manager of Abdulaziz Al Ghurair School of Advanced Computing at Luminous Education. We actually started doing these sessions recently during the COVID and the current situation. We had a lot of amazing line of speakers before, and we saw the interest of the public and the followers on social media of giving them access to these sessions. So we decided to basically go live, and so you can register to these sessions from now on, and also watch them on Facebook. Quick background about ASAC for anyone, for basically the first time, anyone who's watching us for the first time. Abdulaziz Al Ghurair School of Advanced Computing, known as ASAC, it's a Jordan-based advanced computing school that guides people to change their lives through career-focused education. So we offer the latest programs in software engineering and software developing. Basically, we have a program diploma in software engineering, and we have courses also in full stack JavaScript, and soon we'll be offering the Python track as well. Today, we're actually expecting around 150 people joining us. Most of them also, we have a lot of people from our students. And we're excited for the topic of this session with our great speaker, Sayyid AlFaisal ElDajani. Mr. Faisal, I would like to invite you to open your camera. Welcome AlFaisal. أهلا وسهلا فيك.
Hey, Allah يخليك. أهلا وسهلا فيك أنت أستاذ لؤي. Welcome everybody, and thank you for participating in this speech, this presentation. I'm overly honored to be joining you guys here and sharing this topic that's very dear to me.
Thank you, AlFaisal, and I'm sure like everyone is excited for this session. So I would like, before that, just to like share with our audience your bio. So AlFaisal is he graduated from PSUT in 2005. We're alumni. I'm to class of 2010 as well. Faisal embarked into the software world, choosing to be a fish in the small pond of open source technologies, where he worked with PHP, Ruby, and JavaScript across multiple startups before joining Expedia as the technology director today. Having spent the last 8 years in leadership positions, provided deep insights in how to build and grow teams. More specifically, when Expedia started the Jordan office, Faisal was responsible for staffing the office and had to sit on roughly 300 interviews within the first year. Faisal, again, we're so excited to have you with us, and we're excited for the session. And the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. You're too kind. So just let me start this sharing my screen. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Okay. I'll take that as yes. Cool. So the topic today is called how to land the perfect software engineering job. This is a very important topic for all of us, because our careers is far more than just what we do. It also shapes who we are, and it allows us to impact the society around us and to impact the world at large. So it's a very, you know, you're a very lucky person if you can find the job that allows you to grow and to explore new opportunities and new sides of yourself. So landing the perfect software engineering job is a multifaceted question. First of all, there's what is a good company to work at? And there's also another side to that coin, which is where do you want to go to work, and how do you envision yourself growing, and how do you adapt, as no journey survives impact with reality. So when you want to embark on your career, and I'm sure most of the audience today are starting out, maybe they're looking at their first career opportunity, or perhaps they're still in the early stages of their career. There are some things that that everybody can, some skills that everybody can incorporate into their process, into their journey. And those skills and behaviors and the things we're going to be talking about today aren't strictly for the entry level positions. They do span across all levels, but I'm going to be focusing a bit more on the entry level since that's the focus of the audience here today. So with no further ado, if you want to land the perfect software engineering job, the first question you ask yourself is, what do interviewers look for? And here I'm using interviewers, not recruiters, because that's a separate topic that we'll touch on later a bit. When you step into an interview with a panelist that is going to be checking your compatibility, okay? What do they look for? They primarily look for two things. What are the skills you show and what behaviors you exhibit? So on the skills side, as a software engineer, your primary job is to solve problems, okay? So this requires you to be able to be an effective problem solver. And this requires you to also be able to understand new domains. Nobody does, well, most people in the market don't do software engineering for the sake of software engineering. They do it to solve other people's problems, like maybe you want to build an accounting system, or maybe you want to build a travel system as we do in Expedia, or maybe you want to solve whatever problem that you want to tackle. So you don't need to only understand the tech part, but you also need to understand the domain. And your ability to grasp new ideas is super important here. So your primary job is solving problems. How do you become a good problem solver? Well, like anything in life, if you want to be good at something, you need to practice it. And the best way to do that is to solve a ton of sample problems. I know that the program at Aztec is very intensive and very hands-on, and that puts you at a very good start here. But one thing to keep in mind is there's always a ton of problems that you can solve, and the solutions can vary to the same problem. So visit sites like CoderByte or HackerRank, or there's a plethora of those sites. Try, grab a bunch of these sample problems and go at them. Once you solve them, check other people's solutions to the same problem. So that's the second part here. Read other people's code, lots of it. Again, one part that really will help you to expand your knowledge is to go beyond what you know and looking at how other people think about these problems and how they approach these problems. If you want to be a great novelist or an author, you need to start by reading a lot of novels, and you need to start by exploring the work of famous people. And then you'll start writing lots of short stories, and you'll grow in your skills until you become a novelist. The same applies here. It's just that you're not writing murder mysteries, hopefully. So reading other people's, I distinctly remember the first time I was exposed to this. I was in school. I was doing my compiler project, and I was stuck. I didn't know how to do it. So I went to a very smart friend of mine, and I told him, I don't know how to do this part. What he did is that he pulled up the GCC, the GNU C compiler. He opened up the source code and walked me through how that compiler works. And it was such a mind-altering experience for me. It gave me ideas that I never thought of before. That's why reading other people's code is super important, because it exposes you to new ways of handling problems. When you're doing the interview, you'll probably get a coding question or two. And it's super important that you name things appropriately. Like if you name everything as A1, A2, A3, it becomes hard to read that code. And it does really give a small detail on how you approach problems and how do you build code for maintainability. Obviously, sometimes under the pressure of an interview, you might not be able to think of the most appropriate names for variables, but try to put some consideration into that. And it's okay to highlight it. Hey, to your panelists, hey, I usually, think of better names than these, but I don't want to spend too much time on this. At least that sends the signal that you care about naming things. naming things is important because you're not the only one going to be touching the code. And if you name things appropriately, it'll make it so much easier for anybody else that touches the code. Probably you in 6 months' time when you don't know what that code still does. So naming things is important. And one of the most important skills that you can show during the interview is your ability to communicate effectively. What this means is that if you're thinking through a problem, think out loud. Don't just stare at the problem and be silent. Explore, your mental process, your thought process. How are you approaching this problem? The interviewer, one thing you need to know is that if you're doing an on-site interview, they're pretty much started to invest in you and they want you to succeed. The interviewer wants you to succeed. So it's okay to start thinking out loud. They might give you hints to guide you if you're close enough, or if you're going on a completely wrong route, they might give you some hints, to pull you back and redirect you in a different way. This is also important because at the end of the day, you're not going to be working in a silo by yourself. You're going to be working with your team partners. And can you communicate effectively the solutions that you're thinking of? It's good that you can write code that computers understand, but can you also write code that humans understand? And can you explain that code to the humans? So the ability to communicate effectively is really important. Yeah, the second part that really matters throughout the interview is the behaviors you exhibit. So I'm sure these vary from one company to the other, but everybody focuses on some major sets. Are you a team player? Everybody would look at that. Are you humble and open-minded? A lot of times, if you ask people who don't you like on your team, they'll say like somebody that doesn't want to that acts as a know-it-all, or somebody that does not want to hear that somebody else does it better. Being humble, accepting feedback, those are super valuable skills because they will help you grow. Do you want to learn and grow? We all need to understand that life doesn't end, or education doesn't end when you finish school. Actually, that's when education starts, because that's when you hit the real world and you figure out, what you learned were just simple tools to get you to know how to teach yourself further stuff. So it's really important to be able to accept feedback. Approaching somebody, hey, what do you think of that code? Or if there's an issue, or if you're writing some code and somebody comes over and says, hey, thank you for writing that code, but there's this bug in it. Do you take it at a personal level, or do you take it as a chance to learn and grow and explore new ideas? Where does your ethical compass point? That's a very important point to the company. So if you're somebody that is, cutthroat, you don't want to work with the team. If you're working with the team, you don't mind, not sharing the credit, or being a lone wolf. Some companies might appreciate that. Other companies will not. So they're also looking at where do you, how do you behave in groups? Where do you see yourself growing, and what trajectory are you on? Because that really impacts the culture of the company. And every company has its own culture, and will usually try to get people that are compatible with that culture. Not necessarily a perfect fit, but at least compatible, so that there's not a ton of friction. So your behaviors are really important. And this means that before you step into an interview, you need to understand what skills they need for the role you're applying to, and what behaviors they appreciate. So if you're applying for a team for a company that wants you to work with a geographically distributed team across the world, being good at communications, being able to work as one team through different time zones and through the communication mediums like email and Confluence and Slack and all of these things, and being able to appreciate different people and their cultures and what that entails. Those are the things one company would look for, whereas other companies might be looking for something else. So you really need to be more aware of where you're applying to figure out how to which skills are better. Warren Buffett, he's I think today he's like the fourth richest man alive. And he has really good insights into management. I really love reading what this man says. And one thing he said about hiring is that we look for three things when we hire people. We look for intelligence, we look for initiative or energy, and we look for integrity. Why these three? Because if a candidate is not intelligent, not a smart problem solver, but they're energetic and they have integrity, what that means is that this person is an excellent doer. You give them the solution, you tell them this is how it needs to be built, this is what we need you to do, this is how you approach it, and they'll do it fantastically. But they won't come up with the solution. If the candidate is intelligent and has integrity, but doesn't have the energy, doesn't have the drive, okay, you'll have a good problem solver that will care for the company and the team, but they're not going to be an engine for growth. They're not going to help themselves grow, their teams, or the company grow. Okay, and if you have a candidate that is intelligent and energetic but doesn't have integrity, then there's a high chance that candidate might get the company into some hot waters legally with the HR or some other troubles. Really, for any of us to be fully successful at any job, this isn't specific to software engineering, by the way. If you can show the intelligence, the energy and the drive to move forward, and the integrity and the work ethics, you're a star candidate. And believe me, I know this personally, and I know a lot of my friends, even other companies in Jordan, if they find a candidate that shows all three, they will hire that candidate, even if that candidate doesn't have the skills. Even if they don't have an opening, they'll create an opening to get that candidate, because that kind of person is a huge treasure, and that investment will definitely return its yields later on. So, okay, they look for your skills, they look for your behaviors. Now you're in the interview. What do you do? Okay, first of all, whenever you're having a big interview, it's a good idea to have a friend mock interview first. I know whenever I have a big interview, I do that. A few years ago, I was interviewing with Facebook for a manager position. And, I wanted to get the job. So I went to a friend of mine. I told him, hey, I'm applying for a manager position at Facebook. Can you help prep me? And he was such a good friend. He came up with multiple questions that were really tough. He grilled me at them. He had me, step up on the whiteboard and draw things and discuss solutions and different paradigms and stuff. It really helped put me in the mentality of how to work with through that interview. One thing when asking questions in an interview, you'll ask somebody, so I see here in your resume that you worked as I don't know, a Java engineer at company X, and they'll answer with a yes. Okay, the thing is, when an interviewer asks you a question, they don't want just an answer. They want to know the full story behind that. Tell a story instead. Instead of saying, yes, I was a Java engineer at company X for 2 years. That's a very uninformative story. You can tailor it to be something along the lines of, yes, I worked as a Java engineer at that company. We built product X. We built that product because these are the business or the product parameters we were considering. And when we built it, this is the impact. And this is what I learned from that experience on the technical side and on the personal side. All this shows that you're a far different caliber of a candidate when you're applying to a position than simply, yes, I did Java for 2 years. Okay. One big one is that most times you ask people a question and they'll rush into solutioning. This is specifically for coding questions or problem solving questions. They don't try to ask clarifying questions first. And to me personally, that's a red flag. Why? Because when we're working with real products, there are definitely going to be communication gaps. there are going to be definitely some edge cases that I didn't consider. You know, when I'm talking to the team, I'm talking with the engineering managers and the engineers on the team, and we want to build X. You know, I'm not some Superman that has all the answers. I'm going to discuss things, and I'm going to miss things, and I'm going to be, you know, having some wrong assumptions. So them asking me questions, challenging the assumptions, checking the boundaries really makes a huge difference here. And I look for that when I'm interviewing people. And I assure you, all interviewers look for somebody that doesn't just write code. We want people that solve problems. Can you understand the problem first? That's what's super important in asking these questions. Practice how to explain things. This is a really good one and goes back to the first slide about communicating effectively. If you step into an interview and they ask you, okay, can you tell us what a cookie is? It's easy to say it's a file that has data on the browser. And technically that's a correct answer. But if you can explain it in a different way, you can talk about what you know and what you don't know and what you know that you don't know. That becomes a really different conversation. If you know what, this part, I need just to go to the whiteboard and draw how this communication happens. When the HTTP request goes from the browser to the server, there are headers, and the header will contain cookies, and those cookies are then read by the server, which does X, Y, and Z, and then those are returned in the response headers. For all of that shows me how much you know about cookies. Not just cookies, about the HTTP protocol, about networking, about the server-client relationship. There's so much more than just answering the question that's being asked here. One of the questions that I was surprised to get in one of the interviews was, can you tell us what happens when you type www.google.com until the page renders? And that's a great question, because it allows the candidate to explore what they know about browsers, about networks, about DNS, about TCP, about servers, about HTTPS handshakes, about so many things, the response headers, how JavaScript and CSS rendering. And as you explain all of this, there are parts you don't know, and it will show, and that makes it so much easier for the interviewer to assess what you do know and what you do not know, okay? And create all these, the better picture of your abilities. Be open and honest, and be open and honest when you're doing your interview. It's okay to be nervous in an interview. And like I said earlier, if you're in an in-person interview, they're probably investing in you already. And if you're nervous, tell them that, and they will try to find ways to help you, to relax the situation, to ease the pressure. I remember at Expedia, we were interviewing a candidate, and when my turn came to interview that candidate, I went to the room and I didn't find the candidate. So I asked the person interviewing before me, I told him, where's the candidate? And told, oh yeah, he was nervous. So I took him up to the roof to smoke a cigarette and relax a bit. So we really, interviewers want the candidates to succeed. It's okay, be honest and tell them that you're nervous. If you're explaining something and you make a mistake, own it and say, wait, yeah, I was mistaken. I am mistaken. I made an error here. This is not what I mean. And backtrack and try to fix it. Or at least show that you're self-aware enough to know that you're wrong. There's huge value in being self-aware and identifying where you're not doing well, because then you know when to seek help. And that's an absolutely valuable skill to have. So your resume. Earlier I said that's what the interviewer looks for, not the recruiter. The recruiters are more interested with your resume. And I debated a lot whether I should have this slide in the deck or not, because it is such an unimportant part of the recruiting cycle. At the same time, it is such a super important part of the hiring cycle. So what happens is that when you apply to a job, most people apply with the they don't look at things from the recruiter point of view. You know, I write up my resume, I make it like 3-4 pages long. I'll write these long paragraphs describing in details about stuff, and I'll write about my hobbies and how I like Star Wars and all of these things. And I expect the recruiter to grab my resume, look at it thoroughly, read each part in it, and to consider every word I've written, and then to make a very informed decision about if I'm suitable for the position or not. Sadly, that's not reality. When there's a position, usually you get like 50, 100, 200 resumes applying to that position. And recruiters need to sift through that quickly. So, you know, they look at some keywords in each resume. Hey, I'm looking for a Java developer. Okay, does this candidate has any Java experience? Nope. Okay, throw it away. And they'll skip to the next candidate. So it's super important that your resume is good enough to go through the recruiter stage. Beyond that, it doesn't really factor. It just becomes a talking point with the interviewer. And then the rest of your skills and behaviors are what are going to get you the job. Your resume will never get you the job. It's the skills and behaviors that will get you the job. So what can you do about your resume? One thing you need to do to highlight in your resume is what you did. Okay, talk about the projects you worked on. How did those projects impact the company if you worked at previous companies? Or if you're a fresh graduate, talk about some projects you worked on throughout your education. What was the impact of that project? What did you learn from that project and working with your team? Is what you're adding relevant to the job you're applying to? I'm sure you've all seen the memes about resumes for an engineering position that says I have a driving license. I mean, good for you, but is it relevant to the job? Okay, samples are amazing because it makes it so much more compelling to show the recruiter and the interviewers that you know how to code. Make use of GitHub. Whatever projects you're building for school, build them using GitHub. And when you're writing up your resume and the link to those projects, it'll make it so much easier for recruiters to look at you and say, hey, okay, this guy doesn't have any Java experience or technology X experience on their resume, but I can see here that they know how to write code. Maybe they're good enough. Maybe they can pick up the Java skills later on. Keep it short. I can't count the times where a fresh graduate would have a 6-page resume. I don't even know what those 6 pages entail. Again, resumes are just used by recruiters to decide if you're good enough to come in for the on-site interview. They're not going to be reading every single word. Make it all about the highlights and make it a conversation starter. Tell a very short story, just a synopsis of your story, okay? And just enough to say, hey, you know, this is somebody I want to talk to. I want to learn more about that. It shouldn't be more than that, okay? I can tell you all of these things I've learned after working at Expedia and having to go through a lot of interviews and going through the training myself. These things don't come naturally. Those are skills that you need to work on. And sometimes you don't know what a good resume looks like. We don't have enough examples of what good looks like. So it's good. It's important for us to keep these things in mind. So it's a two-way street. You are there for the manager to decide if they want to hire you, but they also need to convince you to work there. So you need to consider what kind of place you want to work at. One thing highly opinionated and good people know is that not all places are equal. One place will help you grow in certain directions. Another place will help you grow in different directions. So you need to consider things like the institution's values. If you're a stay-at-home mom, sorry, if you're a married person or a working father or mother, you want, I personally want to be able to spend time with my kids. I don't want to work every day until like 7, 8 p.m. So I want an institution that has flexibility among its values. So I'm going to be looking for things like that. What tech challenges are they going to be throwing your way? What will you learn? Do they allow you to grow in that company? The questions, all of these things are important to consider before joining any company, because companies will shape you. And we spend such a long part of our time at our workplaces that we sometimes underestimate the impact it has on us and on our personal growth. So it's important to step into that interview with some questions in mind. And those questions show how much you care about where you want to work. Ask questions. If the interviewer says, hey, do you have any questions? Have some questions prepared. If you ask questions to the first interviewer, it's okay to repeat them to the second interviewer. I've listed here some sample questions that I would love to hear people asking. Like, what does a typical day look like for my role? What's the most challenging part of this work? This is the fourth point. The fourth point here is super. I love that question. What makes you get up in the morning and come to the office? And when you ask that to the people and hear their answers, you'll start to figure out what kind of place that is. Are those people answering because they're excited while answering, or are they, dragged and depressed when they're answering why they come to work here? That will give you so much indicators about what kind of place that company is. Who do you not hire? This is a fantastic question that I always ask, because it shows me what you care about and what values you hold. This goes both ways. So if you ask the interviewers, if you ask the company, hey, who do you not hire? And they say, we don't hire somebody that is not committed to the company 100%. That means they will probably ask you to work long hours, maybe weekends. Is that something you want or not? That's something for you to make up, okay? But it's definitely something to explore. I know I'm a bit over time, so I'll try to wrap up real quickly here. So you got your first job, you started working, you're doing well. The statistics around engineering, software engineers, is that they, on average, they stay 2 to 3 years in a position before moving on to a different role in a different company. So how can you drive your career beyond your first job? It's super important to gain experience, okay? When I say gain experience, people say, yeah, I worked at that company for 5 years. That's not necessarily 5 years of experience. That's 5 years of work, not necessarily 5 years of experience. I've seen a lot of people where they have 1 year of experience done 5 times. They solved the exact same problem for 5 years. So they didn't expose themselves to new paradigms. So it's super important to make sure that you're exposing yourself to different problem domains and to different programming paradigms. Try to explore things like functional programming, concurrent programming, NoSQL databases, working on Linux, working on Windows, on a Mac, all these things. Our industry changes rapidly. I remember when I started working back in 2005, one of my first tasks, Gmail was just being released these days. It was the hot stuff and everybody wanted to do Ajax. And one of the earlier things I was asked to do is to develop an Ajax-like feature. Back then there was no jQuery. You had to actually build everything from the ground up yourself. Today, it's unimaginable that you'll be doing these things. So you need to develop a continuous learning mentality. There's something called a mindset. If you get that book, it's absolutely a wonderful book. There's something called a growth mindset, where you believe that you can always grow and go into new directions and explore new ways. Develop that, because our industry changes rapidly. And it's super important that you stay with the curve. Put yourself out there. Best hires are usually referrals. Work with open source projects. develop your code on GitHub and share it with others, join public sessions, present something, try to build a project with some remote partners across the world or in Amman, across Amman. Find people out where you specifically work remotely with each other. All of these things will give you different experiences. At the same time, it will help build your reputation and will help you build those referrals that will get you the jobs you want. Get ahead of the curve to control your options. So like I said, the industry changes fast. You need to be aware of where the industry is heading. And sometimes, you know, you want to make a bet. You'll say, you know what, today I see the industry heading into technology X. It's still not hot stuff. People are not looking for, companies are not looking for people working with this technology, but I'm going to start building it, building capacity in that technology so that when it becomes a necessity, I would already be there. I would be on the forefront of these things. Taking these bets is a calculated risk because you're spending your time and energy in these things. It's definitely something to keep in mind and to explore throughout your career. And the last point is to realize that interviewing is a skill. Some people have this skill naturally, others don't. You will need to practice it. You will need to build it. You will need to do those mock interviews with friends. Go to interviews where you're not really interested in the job. Just, you know, go through the experience and build that experience of how to go through an interview. All of these things will help you identify and secure your next job. Hopefully, it's the perfect job for you. Thank you.
Faisal, thank you so much for this very informative and enlightening session. We were already receiving comments like, this lecture is incredible, I have no questions. And we also have a lot of questions from our audience. I literally can't stress enough how important most of the topics that you discussed, because we actually emphasize so much during our educational programs on the importance of soft skills, and we call it actually essential skills. And the focus should be always in parallel with their technological understanding of any new topic. It should be always focusing on so we have certain type of skills, like it's soft skills, communication, problem solving, on top of the technology and the technical skills that required for any employer. And it's great to hear it from the employers themselves. Like, you already been through hundreds of interviews and you shared, and thank you so much for summarizing that in this really informative session. And before we jump to the question, I would like to invite everyone, if you have a question for AlFaisal, you can post it in the Q&A part and we'll go through them and we'll pick shortly. But Faisal, I want, basically from your opinion, I will ask a couple of questions before we go to the audience. If you can weight the importance, or let's say, tech skills, like let's say the technology skills that are required, or technical skills versus soft skills, how do you look at it as an interviewer directly? Like, is it more important than this? Is this like say, percentage, or does it make a difference? Or you can't weight that, it's just as important, they go together? So,
okay, that's a multi-layered question. So first of all, you definitely need to have the tech skills, because at the end of the day, you as a software engineer, you're tasked with solving problems and writing code. So you need to have the tech skills, okay? But the tech skills, you can have the smartest person in the world, but doesn't work within a team. And soft skills will kill that candidate and kill their opportunities in securing a job, because any major project will not be built by a single person. You will need people who can function in a team, who can communicate effectively, who can resolve conflicts, who can, all the behaviors we discussed earlier in the session are important. So it's a mix of both. What I would say about the tech skills part is that, companies, especially if you show like good problem solving skills, they might be okay with you not having the exact skills they want. If a job posting says, I want a Java developer, but you have PHP experience and you show really good problem solving skills and good behavioral skills and soft skills, there's a good chance you might get the job, because at the end of the day, picking up Java is easy. but picking up how to solve problems is not. Picking up how to work within a team is not.
Thank you. One more question. In the current situation of the COVID-19, actually, we're exposed to, as you know, like the whole, now there's an article by the International Monetary Fund saying that we are currently experiencing what's called the Great Lockdown, which is they're looking at the crisis of the corona as worse financially. The impact will be worse than the financial crisis in 2008 and 9. And most of the GDPs is decreasing in 2020, and you're seeing layoffs. We're hearing about what's happening with Uber, Kareem. They just laid off like around 600 employees, or people are laying off 25% of their workforce, and in multiple tech-based companies. And today, as a school of advanced computing that we still did not launch, but we have around 200 students. And when we started looking, the first cohort recently graduated and they are already applying to multiple jobs. But the market, most of the people that we're listening are looking for people who can help them in the digital transformation, or they're looking for senior roles more than fresh grads. That's what we're hearing today. What are your advice for these people that are already applying and fresh grads? You talked a lot about experience in resume, focus on or getting experience. Your resume is not important, but also super important. How can these fresh grads and people graduating, how can they get job today? Where should be looking for? What exactly should be focusing on if they're not finding a job anytime soon?
If they're not finding a job anytime soon, they need to make sure they stay relevant within the ecosystem. The best way to do that is to continually write code. I would say the single best thing they can do if they can't get a job and they want to stay in this track is to find some open source projects and start contributing there. Okay, this will help them build the referrals. This will help them build their skill sets tremendously because they'll be exposed at a global level, and this will help them build their own portfolio. So that when, you know, sometimes companies ask for somebody with X years of experience, and that way you can easily say, hey, I built these solutions. These are the things I've done, and this is the impact it had. Okay, it makes it so much easier to showcase your value. There's something about the tech market here in Jordan, and it's a bit weird when you look at it. We measure people by the number of years they worked, not by the impact they did at that job, nor by the skills they exhibit. Okay, and that's a very weird thing to me, because you know, if you've worked 1 year, but you can really solve problems, versus somebody that worked 7 years and doesn't really move the needle when working with a team. Okay, who's the more valuable candidate? So it's, again, there is that thing in our marketplace here that we measure people by number of years instead of the actual skill sets. The time is constant for all of us, sadly. If there's a way to accelerate it, let me know and we'll share the Nobel Prize or something. But yeah, showcase the skills that you can build. Showcase, work on an open source project, build those referrals, build the impact. Those are the things that matter at the end of the day.
Amazing. Okay, we'll start with the questions of our audience. We have around a lot of questions. Actually, we'll start picking one by one. So a question from an anonymous attendee. We will be fresh graduates, so we will need jobs regardless of environment. Do you think we should care about environment in our first job?
That's a tough question. So I would say yes, because you have no idea how your first job is going to shape you. You still don't know what a functioning work environment looks like, and whatever your first job is going to impact you tremendously. And if you work in a non-positive environment, losing that and relearning things as you move forward is not an easy thing to do. So it is super important. However, I do realize that, you know, lots of new graduates, the market is a bit shrinking these days. You might not be able to pick what you want. It definitely goes back to, you know, a balancing act. If you can find the job that excites you, go for it. But it definitely doesn't harm to apply to multiple jobs and take the one that works if you can find it. At the end of the day, you need to work, you need to earn a living, you need to move on with life. That's reality. Yeah, but your first job does impact how you work for the rest of your career, and unlearning is difficult.
Perfect. Rashid Badr asks, I'm good with change. Is it good to make short-term contracts, or finding a stable job is a thing you have to look for constantly? So he's asking, is it good to make short-term contracts, or finding a stable job is a thing that you have to look for constantly?
Again, this goes back to, it's a two-way street. What are the values that you're looking for? Some people want the flexibility and the freedom that being a full freelancer offers you. You get to pick what to work on, when to work, how big of a project you're going to work on, at the cost of being an unstable job, where sometimes you will be out of work. Whereas a stable job, it's by like what we just said, it's stable. You'll always have your job, but you probably won't get to pick what times to work at, or you won't be able to give yourself a 2-week vacation just because, or to pick this project over that project, because they have to drive the company's goals. So again, it boils down to what you as a person value more. If you want better freedom, sure, being a full-time freelancer is something I contemplated at one point, but yeah.
Another question from Aya Kilani. It's in Arabic and we will translate it. هل هناك برنامج تدريبي لمن يريد أن يعمل مبرمج في Expedia? Is there any training program for anyone who wants to work at Expedia?
Oh, that question, I wouldn't know the answer to that question. Last I checked, 2 years ago, we didn't have a training program in Jordan. But that's definitely something to take back to recruiters and to the site leader in the Expedia Amman office. I don't have a direct answer to that question. Sorry.
If I may ask, what is the technology stack that you require for people in Jordan to work in?
Expedia is a big company. We have thousands of engineers working across, I'm sure, thousands of projects. Assuming there is one stack is incorrect. So nice. I can tell you we use Java a lot, but is it the only thing we use? No. We have projects in other languages like C, Ruby, Python. There are a ton of languages. Again, showcase your skills. That's more important than the actual language.
Interesting. So another question from Brandon. He's asking, what advice do you have for those who are transitioning into a developer role from other specializations?
That's actually, first of all, I salute these kind of career shifts. It's not easy. It takes a lot of guts to make this transition, and I definitely salute you. The thing is, it might look intimidating. It's not. It's just a lot of logical problem solving. Solve a ton of problems. That's all you need to do. And it would be super great if you can read up on the theory, understand data structures, algorithms, what is the big O and how do you measure different algorithm efficiencies, when do you use a stack versus a heap versus a graph or a tree. All of these things will make you a better engineer, but start with being an engineer. I always say, when I'm building software, I say, build it right, then build it fast. So you don't need to do all at once. Just focus on being an engineer for now, and then you can fill the gaps as you move in your career.
Very interesting. So there's a question from Hala Al-Masharfe. She's asking how Expedia deal with the current circumstances we are facing today.
That's a
That's a
very
general
big
question. Or
Yes.
maybe you can tell us about Jordan's office.
And I'm not sure I can talk about that. It's definitely, I can share what Barry Diller already, our chairman, shared in the
Yeah, if
news.
anything that you can share, that'd be really quickly.
Expedia is betting that COVID isn't going to go away soon, and they're trying to find ways and position for the longer term. Those are things that Barry Diller spoke about recently publicly. But yeah, I can't share more than that.
Of
If
course,
I had any special
thank you
knowledge,
for answering
I
anyway.
wouldn't be able to share it.
So Ahmed Kamal is asking, what is the normal day at Expedia? How does a normal day look like?
Oof.
Looks like at Expedia?
Okay, I love it when somebody turns one of my questions around on me. So it depends. What team are you on? Again, in at least in the Jordan office, we have like, I don't know, 12 different teams operating. So each team has their own time schedules, their own tech stack, their own mode of operation. Some of them like to work using Scrum, others prefer Kanban. Some prefer daily stand-ups, others do weekly stand-ups with daily Slack messages of status updates. It really depends on what team you're joining. Whatever comes to your mind, I'm sure somebody is doing it at Expedia.
Interesting. A question that we actually always say how important, and we hear from the employers, but it's good also to hear it from you. When we ask the employers in Jordan, when we were designing, because we are a demand-driven institution, we can't design or even create a program if it's not demand-driven by the industry. So when we created the School of Advanced Computing, we sat with over more than 60 employers, including Expedia, and we asked them about their needs, describing the ideal candidate, and they gave us main technical skills that are required and the minimum English level that is required, like anything like 5.5 IELTS or anything equivalent, and the soft skills part. So these are what exactly how we started look to the right program. So we landed with our current education partner. So people keep asking about the English language, and sometimes they come to, because we're not saying just academic. We are a training like an education for employment institution. So we prepare and we simulate the environment of working in a tech company. So we have a question from Zaid asking, how important is English language proficiency in tech industry in Jordan? And hence we're talking today on English.
That's a very good question. Now, I don't want this answer to be taken as a way of like minimizing the value of Arabic language. Anybody that knows me will tell you I'm a huge proponent of the Arabic language. That said, at the end of the day, computer science is an English language, is an English-based science. It was created by English-speaking folks, and all the literature, all the material will be in English first. If you don't have good English language proficiency, you will not be able to learn new stuff. You will not be able to read articles and white papers and the books that discuss these things. You won't be able to engage in conversations with people across the world as they explore new stuff. So English language is important because as much as we love like Arabic language help, I don't know, spearhead the astronomy. And we pride ourselves that most of the stars in the sky are named with Arabic names, okay? Because it's an Arabic science. We founded it, okay? Today, computer science is created by the British and then by the Americans. So it's an English first science.
Thank you. I hope that answers all of your concerns as well. So we're moving to an interesting question from Dara Shalabi. So Dara is asking, so you need a job to gain experience and you need experience to get a job, to get a good job. What do you think can fairly break the cycle for juniors?
So,
thank you, Dara.
Yes, I see a lot of job postings that have that chicken and egg problem. There are companies that do not ask for that. So you can start there. When they ask for experience, again, a lot of people focus on the number of years, sadly, instead of the skills.
Yeah.
And that's something, if that's what they look for, if they hold your resume and will look for a number of years, there's no way to accelerate that. What you can do is focus on building the skills that are important at the workplace, build a portfolio on GitHub, for instance, and build your referrals. Again, even if a job says like 5 years minimum, but somebody knows you and says, hey, this is somebody with 1 year of experience, but we should get them, there's a good chance you will at least get an interview.
Interesting. Anonymous attendee, are certificates important?
Ooh. Okay. I personally don't give them any value as a person. Okay. I never sought to get them. I never ask. When I have an opening on my team, I don't ask recruiters to look for certificate X and Y, because you need to keep in mind that certificates are designed to be accessible. They don't distinguish people around, and they are designed to ease the job of recruiters. Hey, this says that he's a Java certified professional, then this person knows how to write a for loop in Java. That's what a certificate does. It doesn't do anything beyond that. You never look at somebody, hey, they have that certificate, I'm going to hire them now. Okay. You might get them to an interview because of the certificate. Mm-hmm. I would say if you have a GitHub portfolio, that's far more valuable because it showcases actual code in action. But again, different companies have different flavors. That's my personal flavor.
Interesting. A question from actually one of our instructors, Lana Isa. Thank you, Mr. Faisal, for this informative session. Our students usually face issues with enhancing their ability to self-learn or the ability to be dynamic in learning by themselves without relying on the instructor as a source of knowledge, but only as a guide. Can you give them an advice on how to enhance their ability to create a continuous learning path for them?
This is something, sadly, this is something that cannot be taught, okay? Mm-hmm. You can't teach somebody that they can teach themselves, okay? The only thing you can do is show them examples. And what I try to do with that is to help people see what I did to drive my career in different directions. How my continuous pursuit of knowledge and learning helped me pick up stuff that allowed me to be in perfect position to get the jobs that I wanted to get. You can't, you know, there's a saying, you can get the horse to the river, but you can't force it to drink. If somebody mm-hmm. does not want to learn, there's not much we can do about it. So the only thing I can say is that for people that do showcase self-learning capacity and the ability to acquire knowledge on their own, I can, you know, with high confidence say they will progress in their careers at a faster pace than their peers.
Thank you, Faisal. We'll take 2 more questions. So we have actually a lot of questions, but because of the time, we'll apologize for some of the questions, and we'll be taking them, and hopefully we'll get back to you with an answer later. But I have a question regarding the from an anonymous attendee is asking if I had really bad experience with my previous work, and the interviewee or the employer asks me about that. What it should be the best answer?
So, okay, like I said earlier, be honest, don't lie. You might say, I don't want to explore that. You might not mention it on your resume if you feel it will be a huge detractor to your chances of getting that position you're applying to. But if it does come up, do not lie. People can pick up that somebody is not being honest and being genuine, and that will harm you even more. At the end of the day, interviewers understand that different companies and different opportunities and different environments will impact different people in different ways. So you might have a really poor experience in job X, but that doesn't mean you're a bad person or you're a bad engineer or you're a bad employee. It just means that you had a bad experience at company X. So if it does come up, be honest. Yeah, that's the best I can tell you. If you feel it's so detracting, try to say, to skip it. But do not lie or try to embellish it and make it sound like it's not.
Last question. Yasmin Al-Kilani, what should we do to work at Expedia? How can we apply? Where should we apply?
Well,
we have a lot of talents here, so they're hungry for work and everybody's ready.
I'm sure they are. What I can say is they can go to life@expedia.com. That is a portal that has all our openings. Please apply. We'd love to get your resumes. Again, it's all about the skills and the behaviors you demonstrate. At life@expedia.com, you'll see our guiding principles. We have 10 guiding principles that we look for in candidates. Do you work as one team? Are you humble? Do you assume positive intent when working with others? Are you data-driven in your decisions? Do you bias for action? There are five others. So those are things we look for, plus your technical abilities for the role you're applying to. So, start working on those sample problems. Check out the skills we look for at life@expedia.com, and I would be super happy to see some of you applying.
Oh, thank you so much. For AlFaisal, again, thank you so much for your time and for the very informative and great tips and insights from your side. I think we had a lot of, we still have more questions, but because of the time, we're sorry we can't take them all. I just added the website, the link for life@expediagroup.com for everyone at the chat group if you want to check it out and apply. And people asking about the slides and the recording. This session is recorded, so you can go to Facebook to watch it, or we will send it also as an via email. It will be recorded in our cloud system as well. AlFaisal, again, we're so happy to have you here, and hopefully we can host you at our campus when things goes back to normal, when life goes back to normal very soon. And many thanks for your time and great presentation.
Thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you all and have a good day. Ramadan Kareem. يعطيكم العافية.
الله يعافيك.